Hello.
There we are, Charlie. How are you, my man?
We are still trying to get this thing right. So
There we go.
we're gonna have to bear with our little mistakes, but it's all done with the best
Well,
of.
it's going to be a work in progress, but well, hello and welcome to Talking Florida Rugby. Occasionally, my name is Ross Davenport. You just saw Charlie Velasquez. He's our esteemed producer, tech guy, the runner of everything rugbyfl.com, one of the best local rugby sites in the nation. For those of you that have tried to check any other state websites out, Charlie has the best one out there for everything, and obviously a great videographer as well. Again, my name is Ross Davenport, referee assigner, color voice of the Rugby ATL home games on ESPN Plus. And I'm glad that everybody that here has joined. Thank you for those of you that joined us for the first episode. Episode 0, the pilot last week. Sorry if those of you that had to sit through that for 40 minutes, but it was a nice little test. And I think you got to know Charlie and I a little bit, just what we're here to bring you with Talking Florida Rugby. Now, obviously, this being our first episode, we're trying to start things off with a bang here. This gentleman just turned 30 a couple of months ago. You know, one of the biggest names ever to come out of Florida rugby, the first player to turn pro out of the state of Florida and also out of Life University. We are joined today by Cam Dolan. 51 caps for the Eagles. And here's one of those 16 tries he scored in an Eagles shirt. Of course, it came from an interception. Where else would it come from, Cam? He's the king of the interceptions and of the stellar line-out work. Joining us live from New Orleans, his current home where he plays for the NOLA Gold. Let's get him online. Cam, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, boys. How you doing?
I'm very well. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some grief, first of all. I did the first Rugby ATL preseason game this year against NOLA Gold.
Yeah.
We did not get a roster from Nolan. And I said, well, the one guy I will know who he is just by looking at him is Cam Dolan. And then there was no sign of Cam Dolan. So
I tweaked my calf a little bit in the training earlier in the week, and we thought about pushing it, but we're like, it's preseason. Let's just take it easy and wait it out until the start of the season. We'll see Atlanta at home later in the season. So
yeah, obviously, things didn't turn out the way we all wanted to this season, but it was a fun game nonetheless. And I guessed some names, and I guessed some names wrong, but listen, I'm learning just as everybody was with this ESPN Plus. Exactly. My first question is a bit of an icebreaker. Which Florida rugby product is more famous, you or Perry Baker? Now, you've been around the world, around the country. If you and Perry Baker walked into a rugby bar, who would get recognized first?
Oh, easily Perry Baker. I mean, he's Rugby Sevens Player of the Year. As far as like the World Rugby awards go, I think once, if not twice.
Yes,
right?
Twice.
Yeah. Back to back, I think. So world's equally fastest man in rugby with his partner there, Carlin Isle. So I still want to see them in a flat out 100-meter race to see who wins. I think everyone wants to see it. Maybe throw Dan Norton in there, and who else would be a good matchup there? Maybe
Rasta the ref. Being a ref that I am, Rasta the ref is as fast as anybody on that pitch. We've seen him catch players from 30 meters behind.
Yeah, he's got a bit of pace.
I met him in person one time, and he's not a very big lad. So it might take him a few people to like look at him and talk to him. At least you walk into a bar at 6'6", you look like a rugby player. Perry Baker doesn't look like a rugby player when you see it.
Perry Baker and Carlin Isles are a bit more on the thin side, but they where they lack in size, they definitely make up for in speed.
No doubt about it. Well, for the uninitiated, some people know your story. Those that follow Florida rugby in life and USA rugby in general know your story. But for the uninitiated, tell us a little bit how you got into rugby back in Southwest Florida, back in 2007, I think it was. And did you remember if you knew much about the sport at that point?
No, I hadn't known anything about the sport up until that point. The gentleman I saw here when I logged in was actually my first head coach. I played football with a guy named Shane Young, and he came up to me one day. It was the fall of 2006. I think it was our junior year of high school, and he's like, "Hey, starting rugby practice. Do you want to come try it out?" And I think when I was a freshman and had played football with him, I was like 5'9", maybe 140 pounds, and then at this point, when he saw me a couple years later, I was like 6'3" and 185 pounds. So he was like, hey, do you want to come, a little bit different stature. And then, I went out to my first practice and absolutely fell in love with it. Donna Young, yeah. So first coaches were Steve Young, Jeff Lovelace, and Coach Larry Fox as well. So Larry Fox kind of took me under his wing as the forwards coach of the team, and kind of taught me a little bit. And then Steve Young is also a great he's great at giving you inspiration and confidence as a player. Knowledge of the game he's had since he started playing, I think, in the 70s up in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And we were led with a good captain with Shane Young, who'd been playing since he was a young kid. So 90% of that team was extremely young, as far as rugby background goes. A lot of the team was their first or second year at most, maybe third or fourth year. I think third year, because it was the third year of the team. So we had a lot of fun. They created over there at Palmetto Ridge and what was known as the Naples Bears, created a pretty good little dynasty. So happy to be kind of part of it, and thankful to the coaching staff and the players who kind of brought me into the game.
Yeah, it's not easy turning football players into rugby players. It's a completely different culture.
Yeah,
obviously a completely different game, but those guys did a great job. Now, when people start playing rugby, they tend to just get told where they're going to play. Was that the case with you, or did you sort of see other positions and say, well, hey, why can't I try? Did they actually move you around a bit, or did you you think ended up immediately playing back row?
Larry Fox said, you're going to play number 8, and that's going to be your position for life. And like for my entire life, not Life University, but I did end up playing at Life, but neither here nor there. No, he told me, he's like, you're built for number 8. He's like, as you get older, you'll put on some more weight, and you'd be an ideal back row. Maybe you'll play 6 and a bit of lock, which I've done as well. So,
right.
I mean, he hit the nail on the head. He called it from day one, and it worked out for me.
Yeah, and obviously, from what I've heard, you played football obviously a little bit and played some quarterback where you got to touch the ball every play. Now, at number 8, you certainly get to touch the ball, quite a bit more than some other positions. Was that something that attracted you to that position, and probably helped make you fall in love with the game?
I mean, I don't think I really had a choice either, though, when they put me at number 8. They're like, all right, you're going to play number 8. I was like, all right. But the good thing with playing number 8 is it kind of got me involved with everything. I got to, we had a few set plays, from scrum that I was heavily involved in, that were quite successful for our high school team. So that was fun for me. And I never really thought about, I want to go play center or a skill position or go play wing or anything like that. So,
right.
Obviously in high school too is different. If you play back row, if you play in the forwards, it's, wherever you are in the forwards, it's kind of all the same. Same thing with the backs. It's not as detail oriented in high school because it's just not as, methodical with your plays and your set piece plays and your kind of open field stuff. So it was a little different, and you got to get used to that as you get older, and everyone has that sort of learning curve.
For sure, it seems these days a lot of these smart high school coaches put at least their most devastating runner at that number 8 spot, and to get their ball guaranteed to be in their hands, especially as easy as it is nowadays, to win.
8 and 12 for sure in high school.
Now, as mentioned, you played football. Did you ever at any point regret not continuing to try and play football? We have somebody coming on later today, Alex Tucci, who did both through college.
Yeah, I thought about it as I got older. I only played 1 year of football. We ran a wing T offense that I played quarterback, so it was a lot of running plays and a lot of just handing off to your fullback, your wing back, and your blocking back. Threw the ball a little bit and had some fun with it. We had a really good football team my freshman year and sophomore year as well. So it was fun, but I think as I grew taller, that offense wouldn't have worked out for me. I would have had to transfer to a tight end or a wide receiver, I think. And I wasn't very in love with it. The practices were kind of boring.
Gotcha.
Just repetition of handing a ball off to me didn't excite me. It was hard to fall in love with it.
Yeah, so rugby just kind of caught you, right at the right time, and you fell in love with it again, thanks to those coaches that really obviously helped you fall in love with it and had that great culture, which is one of the biggest differences, I think, between rugby and a lot of the American sports is just the culture surrounding rugby and the fact you can go play it anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I played a lot of hockey growing up for the Junior Everblades, which was the Florida Everblades junior teams. They're a farm club of I think the Carolina Hurricanes. So they play in the ECHL, and I did that and traveled around the whole country, doing that. And I think the fast-paced action of that was what I was used to, the sports growing up. You know what I mean? And then to go into football and it be like very repetitive and slow-paced, especially with practices. I think it was hard for me to really enjoy it.
For sure. Now, it's obviously Steve and I know Sean O'Leary got you involved, at the USA youth rugby level, U17s, U18s. That obviously was, an amazing experience. And then you went over to play in England for a little bit. How was that experience? There's a bit of a culture shock moving there. Rugby's obviously been ingrained in that society for, hundreds of years. And from where you were coming from, only been playing for a couple of years, it must have been a quite eye-opening experience.
I'd been playing for less than that. So I think I went to my first practice maybe in like November of 2006. And then Sean O'Leary came down in like January of 2007. I went on tour, played some games with the Bears, maybe like 5 or 6 games, and then went on tour with the under-17 team to England. We played in the Millfield Festival there. And then that summer, a guy named Larry Cummings offered me a scholarship to go play at his private school, for the fall of 2007. So when I went there in August, so I had only been playing the game for 9-10 months at most. Right. And I went over there and played like I played like 32 games in like 20 weeks. So like for being my first year, I think it was actually great for my development because I was just like kind of thrown in the deep end, and it was like, here, you have to play, and you're playing, 60 to 70 minutes 2 to 3 times a week for, 20 weeks. And, I played for the school team. I played for Long Levin's Colts, club team. And then I played for Gloucestershire under-18s county side as well. So, I was playing at least every Saturday and Sunday, and then sometimes on Wednesday as well.
Yeah, that's one thing that frustrates me a little bit in Florida is that, we have this great year-round weather, and a lot of people just don't want to play much rugby. They want to play a 10 to 12 game season. We see the season now, even for the senior men and women, starting basically in January. And it's such a shame because the more rugby you play, the more you pick up. I mean, did you find yourself, obviously athletically you fit right in, but did you find yourself out of your depth at all, just tactically wise and technically, or do you think you caught on pretty quick?
I think I got caught on pretty quick because like I said, I was just kind of thrown in the deep end. I just had to go with it. And it was either like a sink or swim thing. And, you got to learn quickly. And I think being able to play so many sports growing up allowed me to adapt to it very well. I'll tell you what the biggest teacher was for me. When I wasn't at practice was I actually played the rugby video games like religiously, like 2-3 hours a day. So I got to know teams around the country teams around the world, the best players around the world. Kind of just like simple basic rules and what lineouts and scrums and stuff like. So that was like right when I first started playing. I was, I'd play the game like 2-3 hours a day, and then I was obsessed. I was obsessed with it. And then I would watch it any chance I could. I'd get online and try to get DVDs from the coaches to just watch professional games and Six Nations games and, watch those players that I had played with in the video game and then just watch what they do. And, I think I used that to my advantage as best I could.
Yeah, and obviously a few years later you were playing against and with some of the pros in those games. Rugby video games get a hard rap because they're not particularly good, but there was a couple there that got people playing the game. Now,
they're fun. Like I said, for basic rules and skills and stuff like that, they're great. I mean, if you're if you're a professional rugby player playing those games, you're like, this is a terrible game. But for a young kid just starting out, I think they're great.
Yeah, I remember seeing you on another video chat. You talked about just being fun. That's part of the fun of rugby. Now, the Florida to Life pipeline has been great over the last decade or so. You kind of started off. We're going to Life, and obviously there's been Florida players that played before when it was when they were playing in the men's side of things. And you had few great years there. You obviously won a national title in 2013, and then talk what happened. You obviously going into your full season 2013, and then talk about how the call came in. I know you got looked at playing against the Maoris up there in the Northeast, and Northampton were keeping an eye on that. And then tell us about the time how you heard you were going to be become a pro rugby player.
It actually happened. It happened extremely quick, within a matter of like 2 or 3 weeks. So we went up. We played the Maori up in Philadelphia. I had a really good game, and then we went and played Georgia in Georgia, Republic of Georgia, and Samu Manoa missed the first game, but I know the Guardian had done an article about the game, and I believe they're an English, sports. They're an English sports kind of, news outlet, and the coach had asked Samu. They said, "Hey, who's this kid number 8? Does he play anywhere?" They're like, "No, he just finished university." And then they watched the Georgia game. I had another good game at Georgia, and then the next week we played Russia at Allianz Stadium where the Saracens play, and we had Wednesday off that week, so before we went and played Russia at Allianz, I went up and met with all the coaches and stuff, and they're like, "Hey, do you think you'd want to come over here?" And I was like, "Oh, definitely." And then they sent their one of their scouts down there to watch the game. I had another good game against Russia, and then a week later offered me a contract for 1.5 years. So it all just kind of happened, within 3.5 weeks, really 4 weeks, and then went there and learned a bunch of stuff. I didn't play much that first 1.5 years, but I was still a young kid. They were playing me at back row and lock, and as a 23-year-old, and it all kind of I learned so many valuable things that I just don't think I would have learned playing club rugby in America, unfortunately. And then did World Cup of 2015, and right before that I signed with the Cardiff Blues and got to the Cardiff Blues, and played I think like 20. I think I made the roster 20 times or something like that in like 2 seasons. And I loved my time in the UK. I don't think I could have settled down there long term, but I think it was so valuable for, my, as far as my learning curve goes, with rugby, and to come back and kind of be able to be a pioneer of this MLR and be here the first year, from the first game, and I think, I've really enjoyed my path, and I'm happy I did it the way I did it. People always ask me if I'd go back to the UK or overseas again. And I mean, unless the money was, substantial and hard, it'd be hard for me to move abroad again. I love being here in the States, and I like being in New Orleans. It's one of my favorite places I've ever been to. Awesome. So I'm pretty excited to be back and watch this growth of Major League Rugby in America.
Yeah, I mean, people look at the stats, from when you went over to the UK. As you said, you didn't get to play a whole lot that first 1.5 years. You played a little more with Cardiff, but as you said, the amount that you would have learned from the coaching, and playing for the A side, things like that, was just invaluable to you, right? As you said.
Yeah, and when I went to Northampton there, I joined halfway through the year. We won the Premiership that year, and we had like 8, regular England starters on our team with Tony Law, Tom Wood, and George North was on that team. Luther Burrell was on that team. Samu Manoa, obviously, great player. Callum Clark was on that team. Dylan Hartley was a captain of England at the time. Lee Dixon had been cap before. Christian Day was a great, stalwart for Northampton for up to upwards of a decade, and I was just surrounded by so many talented veterans that I think I was just able to watch them day in and day out and see how they kind of do their trade, and it was great for me.
And obviously, before that, you'd obviously got your first cap with the Eagles as part of the Pacific Nations Cup. You're playing against Fiji in Japan. Talk about that day and just what you remember from walking out in that tunnel and how you felt.
Oh, it was pretty. It was a pretty exciting thing for me. I think it was a lot more exciting than how I felt the next day after playing Fiji in the rain. They're not small, and they're definitely a physical side. I think we got beat like 30-10 or something like that. Pouring down rain. But it was, to get that first one under your belt is obviously it was an accomplishment of mine. And then, my next step was 50 caps, and I was able to kind of just stick with it and trust myself. And luckily the coaches trusted me too. For the last 7 years, 6 years up until my last cap. And I've had a lot of fun with it. And I'm excited to continue the journey here for the next few years.
Yeah, you mentioned Charlie actually had a good question he gave me about sort of the difference between, playing a test match. Obviously, that was your first test match against a side like Fiji, where physically they're really going to bring it. And so the differences between playing in a test match versus playing even just for a professional side. Tell us a little bit about that. What do you remember from that? And just how you've noticed those differences, whether it's the speed of the game or just the contact amount and the heaviness of the contact. How do you think about it?
I don't think the contact changes much. I think the approach changes a little bit. When I first started out, I kind of took the approach, kind of the same thing. But here's the thing with test rugby: it's the short windows of 3-4 weeks at a time, and you have to be dialed in. You're not with each other day in and day out. You don't have this month-long preseason and playing 30 games with each other. So, that cohesion isn't there where it is with club rugby. So I think mentally it's a lot more, I don't want to say draining, but, you got to be a bit more switched on with the test matches just because you have, short periods of time where, you have to adapt quickly and change your stuff quickly. Whereas with your, professional teams, it's, you're with each other for 6-7 months easily at a time. And, you might have stuff you use in 1 week and then you won't use it again for like 8 more weeks, but you have it in the bank at least. Whereas with test match rugby, you'll play 3 or 4 games in June, but then by the time you get back together in October to prep for the November test, it's kind of out the window and you have to almost start fresh again. So, that learning process is much more diligent at test level, but the approach to it and what you do, diet, sleep, everything, training, it's all the same for the most part.
Do you think obviously this whole COVID-19 thing has brought about talks of rugby calendar changing, making things a little easier on the professionals? What are your thoughts on that? Just on the timing of things and perhaps are we playing too much rugby? Not perhaps you, but people, professionals in Europe playing too much rugby.
Yeah, I think they are 100%. That's why you see a lot of burnout with guys, especially those guys who come on the scene real young. 21, 22. They're kind of almost. Not always, but you'll see some really good athletes come on the stage at 21, 22 and and they're playing 35, 40 games a year, and then they pick up an injury at 24 or 25 and you kind of almost don't see them again sometimes. So I think these like 32 game professional professional leagues are just, I think it's too much for them. I don't think it should be any more than 20, especially when you throw 12 test matches on there a year. They're already playing 32 games. That's you're playing on what, 60 over 60% of the year you're playing every week. So I think it's taxing on the body. It's not like basketball or hockey where you have line changes and stuff. When you got guys, I remember watching Samuel Manoa when we were at Northampton and he played, I think he started we had 32 games out of 34 weeks and he started and played at least 70 minutes of 32 of those games.
Wow. That brings me nicely to Samuel because obviously you had a close relationship when you came over and then he's only 35 now. We really haven't seen much of him over the last few years. Do you think that's part of the issue with him, with just playing as much rugby as he did?
Yeah, I think he didn't really start playing professional rugby till he was 26 or something like that.
Yeah.
25, 26. But then he was just playing. He played 3 or 4 years at Northampton, then 3 years at Toulon. And he's playing week in and week out. He's a big body, so to be the French league's even more taxing than the English league.
I think you get hardly any of the break.
So I think for him, and then he's got a family. He had his wife and 3 kids at home. Living with him where he was, and I think to go to train all week, every week. Go home to your wife and kids, and it's great to have that support, but it's also taxing as well. And then every Saturday having to play 80 minutes for 32 weeks straight, I think it's not only physically exhausting, but mentally exhausting as well in your body. And I think, I don't know why he stopped. I know he, had little niggles and your body doesn't recover as quickly as it does in your early 30s. And, with a family and stuff like that, you have to start thinking, all right, do I want to be able to have energy and spend time with my kids, or do I want to, keep playing rugby? So I think it definitely took its toll, and he probably fell out of love for the game a little bit. Not to quote him because I don't know the reason, but if you were going to ask me, I think that definitely, plays a toll. I think burnout's a huge thing. I think what MLR is doing is right. 16-week long season with 2 to 3 weeks of playoffs. Boom, less than 20 games. A couple preseason games thrown in there, and I think it's the right path for us for sure.
Obviously, you got to see the changes in USA rugby culture between when you left in 2013, and now you've been back a couple of years, and obviously MLR being a big part of that. Was the first incarnation of a pro league. Didn't succeed, but now MLR is taken in. There's even rumors now, the second pro league coming in. What changes have you seen culture-wise, in the USA rugby scene since you've been around, especially obviously on the positive side of things?
Well, I think definitely growth of fans, obviously with professionalism and stuff like that, and just even the skill level of the teams from year one of MLR to year three of MLR is such a vast difference. I think if you take, the best team in the league this year and played them against the Seawolves of year one, I think the best, I think majority of the teams would beat that Seawolves team that won it in 2018.
Yeah, good point.
Just because, all the players who've been around for that long, especially, are they're 2 years fitter, 2 years stronger, 2 years more knowledgeable. That those things are invaluable. Guys who hadn't ever played professional and only played club, and then, have put 3 years of professional rugby into their bodies and been battle hardened and have that fitness level, day in, day out training and diet and, weight room as well, I think is, again, like I said, just those are invaluable things that you can't just do overnight. They take years to do.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, obviously, Florida rugby, I saw it recently. You were chatting with Florida Rugby recently, and you said, rugby isn't big in Florida yet. Hopefully that changes. Now, you've obviously played with guys that come from different areas of the country and different areas of the world. What do you think really needs to change amongst I know you obviously haven't been here for a while, but I know you stay in touch with some of the people. What do you think in your mind that needs to change on the Florida rugby side of things? We've obviously seen more and more players come and go to big schools like Life, Arkansas State. We've got Queens College and guys now making U20s like Dominic Tianga. And how do you think the Florida rugby people that are watching this can help Florida bloom into what it really could be, as a year-round rugby destination?
I think you just gotta kind of what you hit on earlier. I don't think a 10-week season is really going to help very much. I think you need to bump that up to kind of 16, and I think they need to bring back that All-Star tournament they used to have. What were they called? What are the tournaments called they used to do back in the day? With
we had the area teams. The All-Star teams playing against each other.
Yeah. So I think they could bring that back at the end of the season, kind of thing.
Yeah, representative rugby is a big deal. A lot of people recently have come through the USA South side of things.
Yeah. So the USA South side's good. But I think if I was in college, we had that, and it was an awesome tournament. First of all, second of all, being in college and at Life, we would play some teams sometimes that weren't as good, and I think when we'd have those tournaments, they were so competitive, and just the level of rugby was great. To go to Glendale and be able to play against, the Midwest or NorCal or SoCal or the West, I think that was big for a lot of the development as well. Not even myself, but my teammates as well. But as far as Florida rugby goes, I think they need a longer season, and maybe I think professionalism helps as well. I mean, you gotta, if you got guys that aren't doing extra fitness or weights and stuff like that, I know it's club and it's supposed to be fun and stuff like that, but the better product you have out there, that means the more fans you have out there, which means kind of the more following you're going to get, and that's great. But if teams just want to keep it social, totally cool. Keep it social. And I respect that. Sure. If they want to keep it professional, or they want to make it professional and I don't mean be professional, but a kind of semi-pro, higher end amateur status. I think, you got to kind of treat it like that. It doesn't just happen. You know what I mean? And there's some very good rugby players who have come out of Florida. I went to college with a few. You got, and then ones I didn't go to college with. You've got, Jake McFadden was a 2 or 3 time All-American. Sure. Andrew McNeil and Mike Mastermaker were from the Tampa area. They were great players. You got Alex Tucci, who's playing at Utah. You've got Peter Malcolm, who's playing at San Diego and has been capped as well. So there's, Brian Hussey and Brendan Gray were great age grade players as well out of, the South Florida area. Mo Guziani played with me. Gerhard Viet was a great player at UCF. He played age grade as well. Like there's some very good players who've come out. Unfortunately, real life unfortunately hits harder than expected. So it's hard to stick with things if you're not getting, in an environment that allows you to train and, at a high level. So, it's one of those things. And hopefully Florida will get an MLR team here in the next year or two. I think that'd be really enjoyable. And
yeah, 2022, Miami's supposed to be coming in 2022. I'm excited. In meetings and it's in the progress. So that'd be great if we can get that. Now, I think, as you said, the representative sides is really the key, especially now with, as the club level, we're looking at, potentially no national championships next year. And, the mess that we're in, a bit of it, the representative side of things is where you're going to get to play that best rugby. Mm-hmm. That's where a lot more money, I think, should go towards representative sides, even if it's within a region, having Florida play this, even South Florida play North Florida. We lost that.
That's what I was just about to say that. And you do that, you do like a best of three or like, kind of like they do a state of origin with league down in Australia. You do North Florida versus South Florida. You play one in South Florida, one in North Florida, and then one in like middle of the state. And not only will it bring fans out and kind of bring the awareness of rugby to, fans, but to the regular population, but I think it'll help those players develop as well and kind of bring that back to their club sides and, be able to hold a higher standard for everyone. And I think once you do that, everything else kind of falls in place.
Yeah, I think we've obviously missed rugby while it's been gone, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I hope good things come out of this whole break. Before we get to a little bit of surprise, which you already know about, I'm going to give you 3 quick fire questions. Right. How good is AJ McGinty? I know he's one of these underrated 10s, I think, and you play with him.
I think what a lot of people don't notice is how good he is at defense and how good he is at organization, and I think that's where his. I think that's what makes him such a good player, personally.
What's your deal with interceptions? You seem to love them. It's not something that normally comes from a back row player. How did that come about? Is there something that you just learned over the years?
No, I think I just get lucky, right place, right time. I catch myself kind of in that like 5th, 6th defender role from the edge, and with the way defenses are now, they want you to blitz everything up and kind of push everything back in to where the source of the ball came from. And I think maybe teams underestimate my speed and kind of length or range, I should say. And
long strides. Remember somebody mentioned that it was your long stride.
Yeah, and I think when they look up, they don't really notice it, and I don't know, I just kind of get lucky.
And who's someone on NOLA that we need to keep an eye on that you really think is sort of a hidden gem on the MLR side of things that could be the next big thing, perhaps with the Eagles or elsewhere?
Ooh, Billy Stewart. Billy Stewart and Money Tongoira. I think those are 2 guys that are going to be good in the long run. They're both young. They're like 23, 24 years old, and Billy Stewart's like 6'6", 260, and very athletic. And Money's, in a position change. He first year of MLR, he was a center, and the last 2 years he's played back row. And I think like the last 14 games we've had for NOLA, he's started and played very well for us.
Yeah, it was a disappointing way you guys obviously ended 2019, and obviously this season, you guys didn't really get going. But I think 2021 will definitely be one of the teams to watch. Well, thanks for joining us, Cam. But we're gonna have, as you mentioned earlier, an old friend of yours here join us and perhaps tell us some secret stories about Cam Dolan.
All right, there he is.
Talk to this old man here, and one surprise you didn't get to see. This gentleman.
The young square.
Gentlemen, just quickly tell us how proud you are of this man.
You go, Shane.
So proud of him. It makes me feel like so cool to see him, be the star of USA Rugby and just like know how big of a part of Florida rugby he was, and the Hammerheads, the Naples Bears, and just like our rugby culture and accomplishments. Like we feel as a collective, sometimes they're all, all for one for all, and Cam's at the top of that. And he's just exciting to watch too, even if we didn't know him like a brother, like a friend, like a teammate. It would still be just awesome to watch if we had no idea who he was personally. So just very proud of him.
And Russ, I'll add to that if I may. I'm sitting here listening to him going, Listen to him. See, if you knew him back when he was back in high school, he was a punk ass. And that's what I used to call him, okay? And
I was a punk ass.
yeah, and I had him in my life in all aspects, including some business things, jobs, and he's slept in our guest room lots of nights. But what he just said, the maturity and the level, I can't wait. In fact, screw Miami. I want a professional team. By the way, I've negotiated with them 2 years ago to bring one into Naples, and Cam Dolan can finish out his career, and Shane and him can go back in and help coach the new team in Naples. How about that, Cam Dolan? Will you do that?
No, that'd be pretty exciting. That definitely would be exciting. It's hard to turn down living in Naples, Florida, and being able to play a sport there.
Talk about this picture, Cam. I know Steve mentioned that when I talked to him last week that you're obviously kicking in this photo. Is this the last time you kicked a rugby ball with purpose?
No, I had a kick this season and actually ended up pretty good. I've done one kick. I allowed myself to do one kick a season.
How many times have you got to see him play live, Steve? Shane, how many times have you got to see Cam play live?
You know, not often enough, and I'm mad about that, and I want to change that, make sure I can. I've seen him about 3 times that I can aware right now in my mind playing live as a pro, but that is not enough.
I got to see him play once last year in New Orleans. Was it last year, Cam? I think, yeah, when we brought a high school team from Memphis down there to play NOLA Gold Academy. And then we saw Cam and New Orleans play, I think, a preseason exhibition against Dallas.
Right. Dallas, right.
Yeah, exactly. So that was awesome. Got to say what's up to Cam on his way out of the locker room. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and then it started pouring rain, but it was a lot of fun.
Now, Cam, in return, you've obviously seen what Shane's done off the field.
Definitely.
Talk about that. How proud you are, perhaps, of him and what he managed to do.
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome what he's done up there. You know, to take kind of kids who wouldn't have had that normal path, and kind of show them, like I said, like what Shane and Steve and the rest of the Florida coaches have kind of do with me. To see them blossom and flourish and teach them, just how to be a better person, I think is, such an amazing accomplishment. What the first day with Calvin Gentry, and to see what he did and get a scholarship and go to one of the top, rugby schools in the nation, I think is awesome. Where maybe someone from a program that's smaller and, not as popular amongst the high school rugby teams, might not have had that opportunity before.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm definitely going to have Shane on another episode, a full episode, just talk about his involvement with Memphis inner city rugby. Steve, what would you say is your proudest moment of Cam's rugby career for you? Was it winning that first state title or the first cap, or?
No, actually, Cameron sealed the deal in our third state championship. And ironically, I was with Shane. He was playing for the U18s over in England at the time. And Cam and a kid named Brandon Pearson both draw cards. We were down against Jupiter, and I was in a pub, by the way, on the phone, helping the coach on the phone in a pub in England, talking to Chef Farrar and Jeff Lovelace. And Cameron turned it on a few times and came back and to the devastation of Jupiter, even with 2, I think, yellow cards at a time, came back and beat them in the second half totally. So that was one. And Cameron used to run what we call, I don't know if you remember this, Cameron Dolan, but remember the Ron play that we used to play?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's where we used him a lot as an 8-man. Inside the 22, he was unstoppable between Shane, him, Brian Beata, and our wings. It was great. We had all these plays we used to steal out of Italy and France in the men's club that we used to bring to high school, and all the coaches got pissed off because you can't do that. Well, we did, and Cameron executed it very well all the time. It was awesome.
I think it was a combination of Shane, Garrett, and myself. It was a double switch in the midfield from a scrum.
The Ron play.
Yeah, the Ron play. That's what we called the Ron play, right?
You had 10 biting one way and then 12 bit the other way, and then it would leave a massive gap between 10 and 12.
And Cameron back then either. You see how he's built. I mean, we had to stop him, open up his mouth, and feed him protein because he was skin on the bones. But that leg spread that he has, his one sprint was Shane's 10. So it made a big difference on the pitch. It was pretty funny. It was great to watch.
I'm just glad he stopped the no socks thing.
The short sock, the ankle socks.
Yes, the ankle socks.
Well, I had those baby calves, and the long socks would hinder my activation ability.
Coach Ross picked up on him right away when he saw the pictures. He goes, "Look at those socks that Cameron's wearing. You embarrassed us."
At least I think he was wearing somewhat close to proper rugby boots. I ref these high school games, and you see these kids coming out in American football cleats.
Hey, we won though.
So go ahead, Cam. Go ahead, Cam.
I was gonna say, I might have had short socks, but we won though, so we're judging our results, Coach Young.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget.
The ring's the thing. Remember that?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget, just how dominant, Naples high school rugby was, at the beginning of the high school rugby scene in Florida. And Shane, what do you remember about talking to Cam and your thoughts about when you asked him to play and how that sort of came about? How long had you known him before you asked him to play rugby?
I think it was like that first year of freshman football. Obviously knew him then, and we were friends. And I think it was sophomore year in Miss Ball's class. I don't know if I have revisionist history because we've
junior year
in Miss Ball's
algebra 2.
Algebra 2, which I know we both struggled with.
Early morning classes are always tough.
Yeah. But the funny thing was, like, our freshman football team that we had played on as teammates, like, I was a backup, Cam was a backup, but we were 8-0. We had like amazing athletes. I remember thinking for sure there were NFL players on our team, like, because I had just never seen like football in the South, right? Coming from New Jersey, and gosh, we were so good. And Cam and I had very little to do with that. But then we went off and started a rugby team, and then Cam and I had a lot to do with that, mainly Cam. I just remember, he was 8-man and I was scrum half, and like so many 8-man pick plays because Cam was able to just like get off the edge and, just stride past everybody. I remember thinking I should be able to stay in support of Cam because he's trying to dodge tacklers and go for, big runs off the edge. So surely me just running an open field, I should be able to keep up and just run in support and maybe get that pass. But he'd be faster than me running through people than I would be just going to try to keep up with him. So we ran up the score on a lot of teams, and we had a lot of fun playing. It's just great memories.
Yeah, I mean, that 8-9-10 combination, at the high school level can be a devastating combination if you have, good athletes in the right spots there that know what you're doing. Well, gentlemen, listen, we're coming up to 45 minutes here. I appreciate Shane and Steve coming on and surprising Cam. Cam, I appreciate you taking the time to join us for this first episode of TFRO Talking Florida Rugby. Charlie in the background there doing all the hard work. There he is with that excellent jersey on. And again, Shane, we hope to see you down the road here on another episode on your arm. Maybe we'll bring your dad on as well. And appreciate all the time and efforts you guys have put in representing Florida rugby. Steve, we hope to see you back out there soon, mate. Maybe doing a little coaching somewhere. Maybe we can get the development academy in Naples. One great thing about MLR we've seen is 404 for Atlanta. I know NOLA's got a great academy that is helping field those sides, and it'd be great to see perhaps the academy team on that side of the state.
Might be able to make an excuse to come down and help with the clinic.
Amen. And then we'll take you kayak. How about that?
Sounds like a plan. Larry, you'll love that.
Yeah. Hey, and I just want to, before we sign off, Cameron, I'm proud of you. Totally appreciate what you've done in your career, and you know what? It makes a big difference to the young kids looking up now. You are somebody to point to, and you've done awesome. And never forget, remember the days we worked in the diner and we're watching the World Cup?
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, you're in it.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. That's such a great story, and you delivered it. And I want the youth to know that they can follow the example of you and all the others you just mentioned, including Malachi, Esdale, all of you.
That's right, Malachi as well.
Yep, absolutely. So just thanks for what you do. And Shane, thank you for what you do. And those two guys right there, without Charlie, we wouldn't be doing this. He's Mr. Techie of Rugby of America. And Ross, I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you in 2023. Obviously, hope to the World Cup and on the field MLR next season.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks for the kind words.
anybody who's watching, 7 o'clock, we'll have Alex Tucci on from the Utah Warriors. Obviously, he took a little bit of a different path to MLR, but still made it from Florida. So come back and join us here in about an hour and 45 minutes or so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
guys.